Welcome back, everyone. Had to take my co-host for a quick run around the field. So hopefully, like I mentioned, the jacket didn't last very long. It gets a little warm in the office here, wearing a suit jacket. So it's gone. Before Dan joined us, we were talking about the BIA. And while we were chatting with him, he mentioned that there's going to be the panel tomorrow. And I just wanted to point out that that is at about 2:35 tomorrow afternoon. And they're going to talk about how the industry is going to change, or what they think is going to change based on, COVID-19 pandemic. And I think I've got my opinion on that. And we finished tomorrow's show at, or live broadcast, I should say, at 2:30, because I want to sit in and listen on that too, and find out all the things that are going to change. I think it's going to change the way we do some of our testing, especially things like tabletops and walkthroughs and things like that. While we're all working at home, we can't stop doing what we do. So our testing is going to change, our tabletops, for example, how we're going to do those. And I believe there's actually a couple of sessions on that, on how to deliver good exercises and tests. So check those out for sure. And if you weren't able to, then check out the website, the CRT website later on, because all these sessions will be on demand later. So if you don't catch it this morning, you'll be able to listen to it later on, I hope. But I think there's going to be a lot of changes in the industry, not just based on BIAs and how we do our testing, but well, I'll finish with my thought with the BIA. When the pandemic hit, we do say that the BIA is the most important piece of any business continuity management program. Yet when the pandemic hit, we didn't go to the BIA. At least according to a lot of the articles and comments that I saw on LinkedIn and Facebook and some of the other sites, forums that are out there, the BIA seemed to have gotten dropped. And I don't mean dropped as in forgotten about. It was just that wasn't the priority. And maybe it's because of the way the pandemic started out. Take care of, it's a people situation, obviously COVID-19. So HR tended to start leading the charge with COVID-19. Then emergency management groups were participating, and business continuity seemed to come in a little bit later. At least that's what it is with a couple of people I've spoken to. It may not be that in all cases, of course. However, because the way it started, HR ended up with the lead, and BCM, business continuity management, tended to be not the leader, but the player. One of the players, that helped move things along, and technology obviously had a huge part, especially if, people couldn't work at home, order laptops and bandwidth and, even the challenges with shipping and receiving, sending, let's say, I'll use myself as an example. I was sent home, to work from home, but I didn't have a laptop. So now the challenge was get a laptop put together, get it imaged with all the right fobs or keys or whatever came with it, get it to me at my house. I set it up with no technology here, no technology person or desktop support person beside me to do it. So hopefully I'm smart enough to put it together, get logged in with the right credentials, make sure it all works, and then confirm that I can actually do work. For some people, that took time. I knew somebody that it was 3 weeks before they could actually fully work from home. The rest of the time, they would, listen in on conference calls, but they actually couldn't do any real work because they couldn't get to their emails. They couldn't get to, documentation or anything else that they needed. So it posed challenges. And COVID is going to change us in a way, because now we're going to have to consider some of that stuff. as we talked to James Green at one point today, earlier today, he said that some of these big companies like Google and Apple and Facebook, and I think it was Facebook was the exact example he gave, where they're telling people that they're going to be working from home to June and July of 2021. At a minimum. It could go longer than that, and if all goes well and something miraculous happens, maybe less, but they will be working from home for that time frame. Well, what happens now with people that leave the company? And if they're all working from home, if they have a work laptop, there's a new challenge there. We never had to consider, business continuity, was all about making us move forward. But now someone's left. How do we get that stuff back? What do we need to consider? Is it secure just calling up, a courier? Do they, if it's a financial institution, can they just drop it, a laptop and the power cord and whatever equipment at the local branch? Is that even possible? Myself, using myself as the example, my last contract ended at the end of June because of COVID-19. And I decided to take, July and August and, September off. How often do you get to have the summer months off? Almost never. So I took some time off, did some writing and things, but I still have their laptop and power cord here. And I have no idea how I'm supposed to get it back. With any kind of communications, it basically says, we'll tell you eventually, one day. Well, okay, I've got a laptop bag, and actually the bag is mine. Laptop and a power cord sitting in a corner. Don't know what to do with. And at the best of times, with asset management, sometimes things go awry. So who knows? I may have an extra laptop for myself. It could be out of date by the time they want it back. It'll cost more just to for them to come and get it or ship it back than it will just to say, "Oh, forget it, keep it." But we'll see what happens. I don't know what's going to happen there. So that's going to add some changes, but it's also going to change us because we have to work with some other partners too, not just these, onboarding and offboarding of staff and the movement of equipment, shipping it to and receiving from. But I talked with what's his name? I got the last name wrong. Constantine Carbiliotis, who is a privacy expert and security expert. And we were chatting a while ago, and he said now with people working at home, there are some new challenges because if they're using home computers or even company computers, how do we ensure that all the updates are correct, and that all the software is updated properly? Are there challenges with pushing down application updates or policies and things like that? That there are some new challenges with that, and making sure everybody has got the latest updates to things. If they're on a home computer, they may see a notice and not want to change anything on their home computers, and hopefully they don't. Hopefully they're just dialing in. But still, there may be something that's required of them now that they may not want to do. And with home computers, not home computers, but office computers now at home and sitting at home, there's a risk that people, other people in the home, or if a home gets broken into, and hopefully not, these laptops, are they secured? Unfortunately, we hear of stories where computers were stolen from a break-in and things like that, and now we've got company laptops. With and we all do it. We all save files on our desktop when we're supposed to be saving it somewhere in a network location, or we shouldn't have a copy on our desktops, but we know people do it. But the risk is now that if these laptops are accessed by other people, now there's a greater risk that information could be lost, or used for nefarious purposes. And that's one of the new challenges COVID has given us. And BCP needs to work with some of these privacy and security teams in how we're going to manage that. What should we do? And I don't mean that business continuity takes the lead in all of this. I'm not a big proponent of some of this business continuity in cyber, business continuity in such and such, or such and such in business continuity. It's almost as though business continuity is an afterthought, and business continuity has to be a part of every other group. Nobody can know everything, and some of the specialists, shall I say, that are out there make it seem as though business continuity is everything to everyone and must know everything and everyone. Well, that's impossible. Nobody can. All we can do is build the bridges and the relationships with these groups and know when and where BCP fits into some of this. Information security has its own, and cybersecurity has it's an industry on its own. How can business continuity take that over? You can't. They have incident response. They have software that allows them to track incidents and things like this. And what needs to happen is business continuity just understand how they do it, not tell them how to do it. I sat in one presentation a couple of years ago, and the speaker was basically saying business continuity needs to tell these groups how to do such and such and what they need to do. It's like, no, they're an industry of their own. They don't need you. Cybersecurity is the big boy. That's, as Regina Phelps says, that's what keeps a lot of CEOs and presidents and board of director members up at night. So business continuity is not going to be the one who tells these groups how to do their jobs. What they need to do is, where do I fit in? How can I help you? How do I add greater value to what you do? And we have to understand at a high level what they do. I'm never going to understand some of those tools that the security professionals have. And I've worked on any security business continuity team. And a lot of times you think BCP speaks in acronyms. Well, wait till you talk to these people. Holy cow. It really is a whole new language with some of them. But I did, learn when something happens, when do I fit in? How do I fit in as the business continuity person? How can I help you? When do I need to reach out to you? When do you need to reach out to me? And we worked that way. They still had their role. I had my role, and I had an understanding. But I didn't tell them how to do cybersecurity incident response, and tracking and things like that. That wasn't me. That's not business continuity's role. That was information security, and they knew how to do it. So I think that's one thing that's going to change our industry. We're going to have to work with some of these other groups because of these additional risks now that have come into play as a result of COVID-19. We're going to have to work with these other teams. In many cases, I think some have. I've worked with security teams and got to know what they do, years ago, long before I ever became a self-employed contractor or, consultant or whatever you want to call it. Back in 2003, I was working with these different teams, and that includes things like health and safety teams. I worked with them because health and safety in the province of Ontario, at that time, it may have changed since then, but at that time, if you had a certain size building with a certain amount of people populating that facility, in your organization, then you had a health and safety committee with management representatives and employee representatives, and monthly you did an inspection of either the entire site, and identified hazards, or you chose one area, maybe a floor or the operations area or shipping and receiving area, and talked about what are some of the hazards that could happen here. In one place there was a huge roll of paper up against the wall, but it hadn't been braced. If it rolled, it could go over someone's, and I mean, it was almost as tall as me. So, and I'm 5'9", 5'10", something like that. And, it would break my foot easily. It would break my foot, or would seriously hurt me if it went over me. And 6 feet away was actually this piece of IT equipment that was crucial to what this area did and why they needed the paper. If it rolled accidentally, it would destroy tens of thousands of dollars of equipment and hurt somebody and impact their operations. So as health and safety, we identified that roll not being secured as a hazard, because if it occurs, all these other things happen, which could kick in business continuity. So I wanted to be involved with the health and safety group, and I did become a member and health and safety certified as well. And, keep in touch and find out what they're doing, and, and identifying any risks, because we're looking at risk as professionals. We're looking at it from the perspective of fires, floods, workplace violence and incidents, and I don't want to say the usual, but the common ones that come to mind. But you don't think about sometimes somebody under their desk, with an extension cord has, if their office desk only has 2 plugs and they've got an extension cord with 10 things plugged in, that's a risk. Health and safety has to identify that. Business continuity is never going to know it's there. But health and safety will, because they have to go and look through, and they bring that forward to, in the report, their findings, they bring it to management either actions it or not. If not, then it has to be logged as a risk. This is what could happen, and you either accept the risk or you change it, right? Which is project management. I'm going to talk about project management later on. So that's another change, getting to know all these different groups: health and safety, cybersecurity, information security, the facilities team, getting to know facilities, and property management, depending if you're co-located or not, and, in a tower or just your own building or just sharing, space in a strip mall. Getting to know all these other different groups that could have something to do with what you do. They may have an impact on you. With property management, if they are responsible for the building and everybody in it, then they're going to have, evacuation plans. And they're going to expect, everybody to evacuate based on what they have in their plans. And you need to know what those plans are. You can't turn around, if you're on the 3rd floor of a 5-story building and their plan is that everyone on the 3rd floor, and I'm generalizing here and this really isn't the way it goes, but everyone on the 3rd floor is going to meet over here by that tree, and then you come along and you create your own evacuation plan, your own assembly locations, and say, no, we're going to meet by this tree. Then when they're doing their inspections and searches afterwards, we can't find anybody on the 3rd floor. What happened? Where's everybody? Where we said, we're going to go over to this tree here. Well, now we're commingled with people from the 4th floor, and they don't know who's who, what's going on, who's left up in the 3rd floor or the 4th floor now. So you have to work with them as well to find out what are their protocols. What do I do to follow your plans, Mr. and Mrs. Property Management, and where do my pieces kick in? Where do I have to take responsibility? Part of that is once you're at, our tree, wherever our location is, from there, anybody on the crisis management team or maybe the BCM person opens up a conference bridge that all crisis management team members are supposed to call in. I did that exercise once. I told everybody, they, a lot of time, not every time, but sometimes they'll tell you in advance when a fire drill is going to occur. If they don't tell you the time, they may tell you the date. So you can kind of schedule around it. And I told everyone at a meeting beforehand, I said, tomorrow we have a fire drill, a property manager, don't know what time, but we do know our assembly location. So, excuse me, expect to follow all of the protocols, which means, the bridge will be opened and everyone is expected to call, on the crisis management team. I bet you can guess what happened. I was the only one on the call. All the other crisis management team leaders were standing around chatting, with colleagues and coworkers at the assembly location, while I was the only one standing there on the phone. And I just kind of looked at them, and they smiled, waved, like, oh, we know this is a drill. So our next meeting, obviously I brought it up, does everybody know the conference bridge number? And found out that what they had told me, they knew, because the number was in existence before I even got there. So, I had to, I was leveraging what they had already in place. And they said, oh no, we forgot about that. Isn't that a card? Didn't they give us a card about that? So obviously when they implemented it years before, all they did was hand out a card and nobody knew what it was for. Even though I had reminded them, I knew what it was for, and I'd only been there a short time. So that was interesting to see what happened there, or what didn't happen at this. So that's going to change. Property management is another one of the groups that we do have to talk to. Just going to take a sip of water here. If you like that video, thumbs up. If you didn't like that video, thumbs down. But leave me a message and let me know your thoughts. Of course, don't forget to subscribe. And in the meantime, stay prepared, everybody.